This movie, it's hilarious in places, it's difficult to watch in other places. Well, did you have any reluctance to actually get involved in making the movie, or were you quite up for it from the get-go?
Not at all. I think it's nice to show a behind the scenes or a journey of what international sport's about. I think the reality, if you want to be a professional sportsman, there's going to be some serious lows along the way. I think whether you win, lose, and all the hard yards that come with it, hopefully this film gets every bit of that out. So I think, not at all, I think it's nice to show that. I think where cricket is at the moment, in the last week or so, it's nice to be able to show another really good journey, but also, you know, when you get to, I suppose for us, we got to number one in the world, and after that it wasn't as easy a journey as you think.
And obviously this film, I don't think you've seen it yet, is that right? So it's a hard watch. I knew some of the background and stuff, but it was a real behind the scenes look. Were you reluctant to actually get involved in doing some filming, or were you up for doing it all the time?
Yeah, I was very happy to do it. I've been open and honest about it in the movie. The documentary, whatever questions they've obviously asked me, and I just tried to be honest. And I think Barney's done a brilliant with his production team. The snippets that we've seen on Instagram seems like a very good movie.
But it must have been quite a hard thing to make. Were you worried about being involved in it, or were you in from the beginning?
I don't think it was hard to make. I think I was only involved up until 2011, and when I left the team, it was in a very good place, and I knew it was time to go. So my experience of that period was actually a very positive one, and to be involved with these guys is fantastic. To see them again is to get us back together as a team is superb. So I find the movie humorous, but also it gets across to the viewer, the sacrifices that international cricketers have to make, and Test cricket can be one of the most gruesome environments that you play in. It can be scary, it can be ruthless. You go a lot of ups and downs throughout the game, and I think it does get that across quite powerfully. But there's also a lot of humour, especially when you've got people like this guy swinging around.
You don't want too much of him, but a small dose is good. A bit like a Mars bar or something. You want one every day.
I used to stand next to him and slip all the time. I mean, you have to say he's he's the funniest guys that you can come across. So, and you need that in the dressing room when you're having your bad days, and you need a bit of humour, and he certainly gave that.
I watched it yesterday. I cried, I laughed. Obviously, it's extremely powerful. We become number one in the world, which is a wonderful thing. But then, obviously, it's a difficult place to be. What was it like filming it? Did you have any reservations doing this, or were you quite up for it?
No, I was more than happy to do it. I haven't seen it yet. I've been sent it. I've had the chance to, but I don't want to. I want to watch it tonight with my mates. So I went through that whole period of rising up to number one in the world, and then it crashed down around us. And I lived that period of my life with my mates, so I want to experience tonight with them as well. I think they've all seen it, they've ruined it, but...
Well, you sort of know what happens, I guess, don't you, since you were living it.
But, to see everyone's perspective. But I enjoyed it, like sitting through it with Barney, who's a brilliant director, by the way, he's a good mate of mine. Sitting there and just being completely candid and honest, this is how I remember it, this is how I lived it. And I loved every minute. I don't believe in living life on an even keel, so if I had to experience ridiculous lows at the end compared to the highs at the start, then fine by me.
What I'm noticing about all the cricketers, you're all taller than you look on TV. What's that?
But no one ever says much slimmer than you look on TV, and I was hoping you'd be the first, but you weren't, so bollocks to you.
Great, Graham, you're looking slimmer. I've missed
I'll
my...
tell you what, there you go. Everyone always says I look taller because I was one of the bowlers. I'm over 6 foot, and yet I was 3 inches shorter than the next bowler.
So it's Jimmy Anderson's fault, and Freddie Flintoff.
He was the short arse of the fast bowlers. It was Tremlett, Finn, these guys who tower above everyone broad. I mean, come on.
And this movie, I don't know if you've seen it yet. Have you seen it?
Seen bits of it.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, I laughed, I cried. It's an amazing story, and Barney's done such a good job telling it. The way the symbolism is used with all the different graphics and things. I mean, how hard was it for you to go back and relive some of those memories? Was it difficult, or were you quite up for doing that?
Pretty difficult for me because I got a memory like a sieve. So Barney had to prompt me on most of the stuff that actually happened. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, and that. So it was like sort of, he was jogging my memory quite a bit, and it was like, oh yeah, that happened, and then this happened, and oh, there is a funny story about that, and yeah, it took a while to get to prize the memories out of me.
Awesome. And the German training camp looked absolutely brutal. Was it you, I think, that said thought you were going off to see a football match? Is that right?
No, I thought we were maybe going like on the beer festival. Yeah, there was a rumour that it was beer festival because there was a rumour that someone, I don't know, cousin or someone's nephew or niece or something worked at the airport and they knew that we were booked on a Germany flight. They were like, Munich, let's go. But nah, didn't happen.
Does that stick in your memory as sort of a really good time though, where it was obviously difficult physically, but actually it brought you all together so much?
I think it was, yeah. I mean, it's part of what did bring us together. And I think while we were doing it, it was like, this is total BS. Like, why are we doing this? But then afterwards, we kind of got the realization that, do you know what? Like, around that campfire on that night, you know, we bared a little bit of our soul to each other, and I think that's what stuck with a lot of lads, that, you know, we are vulnerable, we are, if you're willing to be vulnerable with each other, then, you know, that's where you're going to get to know each other a lot better, and that's what brings you closer together and makes you a stronger bond.
Were you worried about being involved in it, or were you quite up for it from the beginning, and going back to those memories from, you know, it's not that long ago, really?
I definitely wasn't worried about it. You know, I thought it was a good story to tell, and I think what they've done is actually they've gone beneath the surface and given a real flavour of what it's actually like to play cricket for England, and not just the on-field stuff, the sacrifices you have to make, the great sort of mental battles you need to go through, and so it's great to have it documented. You know, I will show it to my kids and my family, and hopefully people will find it interesting at the same time.
I did enjoy the bit where you seem distracted. Have you seen the film yet, actually?
No, you just
right,
ruined it for me.
No, I won't tell you. It's something to do with cows near the end of the film, but that might escape.
It's because this bloke left the gate open. I told him one thing to do is don't leave the gate open. And you said he wouldn't be in the film, and now you stitched me up, so I don't know what's going to happen.
And I apologise.
Well, it's my wife who's going to...
And I've just ruined that bit for you, but
I knew I was in there, but...
So it's difficult to watch at times, but what was it like going through that for you? And was it difficult to go back to film this for the documentary?
Well, I don't know quite what was in there, so I probably better to answer that question afterwards. But no, I think it shows probably actually some of what happens actually behind the scenes in elite sport, and cricket is unique in that it's so long. And it can be and it's a lot of failure in terms of it. You know, you fail more times than you succeed as a batter. And, you know, you play however many games, you get a few hundreds. And the only times you really succeed as a batter is when you score hundreds. That's what you define for. So most of the time you're failing, and that is I think that is quite hard to deal with in general. So, but you know, I'm hoping that there's some great moments as well, because it's a very special time to win like we did and win as many games as we did and win in Australia is very special.
What a movie. It's I love the emotion. It made me cry more than once. It made me laugh a lot. But what was it like? Where did the original idea come from? Are you just a massive cricket fan that just wanted to tell a great story?
No, well, I actually, I say worked. I was meant to work with the England team during that period, actually. I was kind of their video kind of producer, and it was early days of that kind of thing. So I knew all the guys personally, and I knew that I had some archive footage that no one had seen. And obviously this was going to be a big year for English cricket. So I thought, well, I think there's something there. There's a story to be told. And also I felt that team had kind of left on a down, obviously, but there were some great moments of that England side, you know, life-defining moments for a lot of cricket fans. So until Sunday, of course. So, you know, I felt there was a really good story to tell. And it wasn't until I started doing the interviews that, of course, then the real human element started to come through.
And I love the iconography, the way you used Jonathan Trott in the water. I love the field and then the buildings behind it. I mean, it was just smash the camera. It was just... How did you sort of come to those conclusions to tell a story to make it a bit more dynamic rather than just cricket?
Because the cricket films are inherently, if you've seen them, most of them are pretty boring and kind of straight up. And I'm sure that those imagery ideas that we had might split audiences a little bit, but for me they're magic, because I'm trying to get inside this guy's head, try and get under the skin of how he really felt going out to bat at Brisbane on the verge of a breakdown, essentially, you know. And it wasn't, the bit after wasn't interesting to me, it was how he got to that point, and could we make an audience feel that before going out to face Mitchell Johnson at 95 miles an hour and Aussies swearing at you. So, that was the idea, and yeah, try and make cricket as cinematic as possible, really.
Well, I loved it. I laughed, I cried. What a movie. And how do you go about creating music for a film like this, where it does. I guess it's quite exciting because it does have so many amazing moments, and also it's a poignant film. It's difficult.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it does. And I'd had me and Barney, the director, we'd spoke a lot before I'd seen any of it, so I'd premeditated a lot of the music. But actually, it totally changed when I saw it all, and it all became totally instinctive, actually, because I kind of had an idea, like most cricket fans will, the personality of all of this England team, but actually the way they were so exposed and vulnerable, I felt like it deserved a total reinterpretation, so I kind of approached it totally fresh. So all the music that we made was in that 2 month process. It didn't exist before, so it's totally bespoke for the film.
Did you do Warrior as well? Did you do the soundtrack for
I
Warrior?
did. No, I just did one song that Barney used for Warrior, which was the catalyst really to working this. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, because what's he like to work with? Because the movie, I love the iconography, the way that the Jonathan Trough floating through the water, and that amazing scene where he goes up on the hill where you see it twice,
Man,
don't you?
that's beautiful, isn't it? That's what I really loved about it as well. That I think Barney understands the drama and the theatre, and he wanted to put more artistry into a sports film than you would have previously seen before. And I thought that was a nice way, because I'm always trying to convince people how great cricket is, and so for him to spin it in those terms, like really cinematic and those really twisted scenes, and for the players to want to be involved in it, I thought that was a really nice way to sort of punctuate what's good about it without literally saying watch a game of cricket type thing,
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys,
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed,
Nice.
Hey